look at some vocabulary words talking about the energy flow through the ecosystem. We're going to look at food chains, food webs, and food pyramids. Our first vocabulary word that we are going to look at is a producer. These are organisms that make energy inside themselves, like plants, grass, flowers, and trees. Then we have consumers. These are organisms that must eat other things for their nutrition or food. So an example is a snake, a frog, a bug, or a horse. Our next vocabulary word is a herbivore. This is an animal that eats plants, like a horse, or a rabbit, or a deer, or bugs. Now we have carnivores. These are animals that eat other animals, like an owl or an eagle, or snakes or bears. A primary consumer is an organism that gets its food from eating plants or producers. These are the first in our food chain. Then we have a secondary consumer. These are animals that eat other animals that eat plants. So you have the animal, the secondary consumer, and they're eating the animal that eats the plant, the primary consumer. The tertiary consumer is an animal that eats the secondary consumer. Last, when an animal dies, we have decomposers. These are organisms like bacteria and fungus that break down the dead plants and animals. This is an example of a food chain. It is a singular path of flow of energy from the sun to the producer through the levels of consumers. Now we have a food web. This is overlapping food chains with different paths for the flow of food energy in an ecosystem. Now you can see our food pyramid. It shows you the trophic levels or the positions that is on a food web. It is the same as an energy pyramid. It is a diagram that shows the trophic levels of organisms in a food web. Our ecosystem is a system of biotic, living things, and abiotic, non-living things in an area that interact with each other. The ocean is an example of an ecosystem. Also, a pond is an example of an ecosystem. It has living and non-living things in the area that interact with each other. So some examples of abiotic factors include rocks, the weather like lightning, soil, water. These are examples of non-living things called abiotic. Last, in an environment, there is competition between living things. So maybe a rhinoceros and an alligator are competing against each other for food. In more than one thing or population in an environment depends on the same limited resources or food to survive.